Hey, vinyl community and all my music loving friends, it's Mike MGK Boston back with another video. It's been a couple weeks, so nothing special today. I don't do a lot of record shopping in the summer months, so I thought I'd just show kind of a grand total of what I've picked up randomly. There was a yard sale in July, and mostly the other purchases were all made here at a local store where I live in the Metro West section of Boston. A used store, only used, called Deja Vu Records. Annoying thing about this store is the owner, she doesn't mark the price on anything, so you just kind of have a very, you have your little Discogs median in your head. At least I look up some stuff that I think I really don't know what it's worth. Then you get up to the counter, and then she kind of negotiates. So, but she's fair. So I do find a lot of good things at that store. So yeah, if you're ever out in the Metro West section of Boston, look it up, Deja Vu Records. So without further ado, this is just going to be called Summer 2022 is the year and finds of this particular summer. So kicking things off, I'm officially now a completist with Cream. This was their final album. It's a mix of live and in-studio recordings. I think they owed this to the label. Of course, they were on Atco at the time. And of course, there they are right there. All the guys, Eric Ginger and Jack Bruce on the cover, and of course on the back. And it's called Goodbye Cream because this was their farewell, and they all went on to do other things, all three members. Probably the best power trio ever, in my opinion. I'm a bigger, as far as the whole classic rock genre of the 60s, 70s, early heavy rock, I'd take Cream over Led Zeppelin. If it was one of those, vanilla or chocolate questions, I'd take Cream over Led Zeppelin. Anyway, some of the tracks on here, the highlights for sure. There's just a killer version of I'm So Glad. There's a live version of Politician. That's a Jack Bruce song. He does the vocals on that. And of course, bass guitar. And then on side two, you've probably heard Badge before. So yeah, it's Goodbye Cream. It's quite a nice layout. And the inside here, it's just like, it's kind of gravestone signaling the end of the band, I guess, metaphorically. But yeah, it's a nice gatefold sleeve, and it's Goodbye Cream. Release date on that, again, 1969. It's going to be all over the place with genres like I usually do. Just depends on the mood I'm in, the day I'm shopping. This was kind of beginning of Willie Nelson's adult contemporary years, I would call them. Release date on this one's 1982. Of course, the song and title of the album, Always on My Mind. Look up the version around 1987 by the Pet Shop Boys. Of course, synth pop new wavers from the UK. They do a great version of Always on My Mind by Willie Nelson. So yeah, I say adult contemporary because he lost his outlaw edge kind of for a little while. I won't say lost his way, but wanted to make some money, more commercial appeal, and he was mellowing out, I guess, a bit. But this, he got a new producer, this guy named Chips Moman, and he plays on this, I think, keyboards points on this, but it's nothing like his 70s stuff for sure, or the 60s stuff, because everybody knows he was one of the biggest songwriters in Nashville in the 60s, writing songs for everybody before he was a performer on his own. So this was kind of mid-career, if you will. Well, not mid-career because he's still going. But yeah, he does a neat version on this of Whiter Shade of Pale. That's a Procol Harum song. Party's Over is a nice ballad, and the title track, Always on My Mind. This is a $3 or $4 record, and it was in mint condition, so I grabbed it. And it's Willie Nelson, Always on My Mind. All right, and on the same note, as I said, his outlaw years. Here it is, right here, the Outlaws. There's the band of outlaws there, and then in the middle there's, of course, Waylon and Jesse Coulter were married for a number of years. I've mentioned that previously. Had a son together, Shooter Jennings, who's a performer now in his own right. So this was RCA. All these guys and gal, Jesse Coulter, all recorded at RCA Studio B in Nashville, and they were on the RCA label. So RCA realized at this point, hey, we got to show this progressive edge and get this out there to the masses. So they did. This was a compilation. So all these songs on this had been on all of these artists on their own respective records. So, like My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys, that was on a Waylon Jennings album. Suspicious Minds, that was a Waylon Jennings and Jesse Coulter duet. Good Hearted Woman, Waylon and Willie doing a version of that. and T is for Texas by Tom Paul Glaser. I don't know a lot about Tom Paul Glaser, but I do know that single, and it's a good one. I'm going to look up some more Tom Paul stuff. I think he had a couple of brothers, like they were called the Glaser brothers. I think there was 3 of them, including Tom Paul, if I'm saying his name right. And there he is over here. And this is the Outlaws. Apparently, at the time in 1976 when this came out, this was the first country record to sell over a million copies worldwide, and it's the Outlaws. And this was in great shape. Again, I got this for just a few bucks, and it's really good. Nice compilation, and of course, there's a really nice kind of biographical summary of the whole outlaw movement in Nashville and how it started and how these people were, instigators, if you will, of that whole progressive country sound. The Outlaws. Good compilation. If you see it, grab it. All right. Like I said, all over the place with the genres and the styles today. And here we are. Anybody that's watched any of my previous videos knows I'm a big jazz fan. And I have a copy of this on compact disc. And like I said, I'm not in the habit of duplicating these things, but I got this for a really good, reasonable price. And it's in very good condition, I would say. For Discogs, I would rate it a very good. The records play, it's a double LP set. And this was recorded at Carnegie Hall. I want to say the year on this is 1963. Of course, this is the original incarnation of the Dave Brubeck Quartet with Paul Desmond on saxophone. Later in 67, when he reformed the band, Paul Desmond left on saxophone at that point. Anyway, this is at Carnegie Hall, and kicks off with St. Louis Blues, Bossa Nova USA. That is a really excellent album. In fact, I have it in my Jazz Overflow right here. Let's see, drumsticks flying around here. Let's see. Bear with me. Oh yeah, Jerry Mulligan was the guy that took over. Here's a Jerry Mulligan record right here. He took over on sax in the second incarnation of the Dave Brubeck Quartet. Gee, I really wanted to show that. Let's put the front here. Getting there. And no. There it is. Finally. Sorry for the delay. Just thought I'd show this. So that track, Bossa Nova USA, the Dave Brubeck Quartet. Not sure of the release on this one, about 1960-61, I guess. But I just thought I'd throw that in as a side note, kind of pertinent to this. So so those are a couple of highlights: St. Louis Blues and Bossa Nova USA. And of course, there's a really excellent version of Blue Rondo a la Turk. Of course, that was from, I believe that was Time Out album and Take 5. That's on here as well. And on the inside, again, just a bunch of stories about the tour they were on at the time. And it's the Dave Brubeck Quartet at Carnegie Hall. 1963, the release on that. All right, and into the world of blues, Big Joe Turner. Every day I have the blues. It's Big Joe Turner with Sonny Stitt on saxophone, Pee Wee Creighton. There he is on lead guitar. Not sure who plays drums on this, but this is really good. They do an excellent version of the T-Bone Walker tune, Stormy Monday. Of course, most of you heard the version by the Allman Brothers Band, made famous on the Live at the Fillmore album. There's a version here of Shake, Rattle, and Roll. And Lucille, good version of that too. Big Joe, he's a singer, and with accompaniment by various musicians over the years. He was active from late 30s right through the 70s into the early 80s when he passed on. And this was on the Pablo label. You can see the Pablo logo there. They always have a lot of good stuff on that label, reissued stuff and original as well. And I believe the release date on this one, I want to say 78 on that. 1978 on Pablo Records. It's Big Joe Turner, Every Day I Have the Blues. Really good traditional blues. And again, that one almost, like, I'd say very good plus condition. Really happy with that. And another great find. I don't think she knew what this was worth. I got this just for a few bucks. It's, of course, Bob Dylan. This was released in 1967. John Wesley Harding. This was kind of his, I would say, first sort of country album. Some of the tracks on this, I'll Be Your Baby Tonight, it sounds like a country song. It really does. But then, it's kind of like country folk, if you will. I don't know if he had a different band with him at this point. And this is, again, 1967. Of course, these are all originals on this. I Dreamed I Saw St. Augustine. Of course, All Along the Watchtower was on this, and later to be covered by Jimi Hendrix a year later. So again, this is John Wesley Harding. It's Bob Dylan. Release date on that, 1967. Excellent record, excellent. Whenever I see the Dylan stuff out in the wild, I grab it. Most of it's good. A previous video, I did a big summary on Bob Dylan. I've got a lot on CD, so I'm not going to be buying that because the Dylan stuff's usually expensive. I got a great deal on that John Wesley Harding album, but that's kind of an exception to the rule, not the norm at all. And this is the late great Irishman. I've mentioned Rory Gallagher before. Excellent blues player, right up there with Eric Clapton, or even surpasses him at points. Really gifted player, really exceptional. Whenever I see Rory Gallagher stuff, I grab it. And look at this sleeve. It's like new. I mean, you can see there's a little indentation in it, but I mean, again, there's a nice photo of Rory on the back here. Release date on this one, 1979, and it's really killer. It's high energy blues. He opens here with a track called Shin Kicker, and he doesn't let up. Comes in hot with that one. Follows with Brute Force and Ignorance, Cloak and Dagger. The Shadow Play kicks off side 2. That's another heavy duty, just like Shin Kicker. Again, the name of that track, Shadow Play. And this is Rory Gallagher, studio album, Photo Finish, 1978. It's really excellent. If you don't know Rory Gallagher, look up a couple of those songs that I just mentioned, or just look them up on allmusic.com and read a bit about them, or Wikipedia. If you like blues, I mean, he's just a really great player. Excellent. One of the greatest of all time, certainly in my opinion. Just my opinion, though. You can try to look up some of those songs and see if you agree or disagree. I tend to think you'll agree with me on the Rory Gallagher, though. Moving on here, this is the debut album, of course, by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Again, really in excellent shape. It's an original pressing. There they are on the back. Of course, John Fogerty, the lead singer. Later went on and had a successful solo career in the 80s. And there they were on the Fantasy label. Like, there's a story that goes with this. I think they got screwed by this label big time, the band, and lost a lot of money. I didn't bother looking that up before the video, but I seem to recall hearing that story or reading that years ago. They really got the crappy end of the stick on that from Fantasy Records. Don't know what happened, but I'm definitely going to look it up now that I'm talking about it and see there's a promo. It's not a sticker, but it's just there. It includes the track Susie Q. You all know that tune. Probably heard it a million times, but some of the other non-commercial ones that you may not have heard, The Working Man, Get Down Woman, Gloomy. Of course, and the album kicks off with I Put a Spell on You. So these guys were kind of the first purveyors of a subgenre of rock and roll. They called it swamp rock. Think maybe Canned Heat is another band along those lines. And you think of Creedence Clearwater Revival, or they're commonly known by the acronym CCR. And this was just a few bucks, and it's in perfect condition. I grabbed it. It's a nice listen. It's a short listen. Wouldn't be even half an hour. Most of these songs are short. Susie Q blows out at about 8:34, and that's a nice jam on here. Probably the highlight for me on here, right there for your psychedelic Sunday listening pleasure. It's Creedence Clearwater Revival, and that's their debut from 1968. A lot of good things came out of that year, including myself. All right. Again, moving all over the place. I've talked about this gal before. She's still around. Jazz vocalist Nancy Wilson later went on more of an adult contemporary sound in the 80s into the 90s. I think she had a residency in Vegas in the 90s for a while. Just doing her thing with concerts. But this was back when she was on contract with Capitol Records around the same time as Sinatra was on a real roll from like 59 right through to about 68, 69. I think she did 20 albums, and I'm getting there with them. I've got about a dozen now, counting this one. So this one came out, what's the release on this one? 1965. And again, these are mostly just standards. There's a Righteous Brothers song. She does a version of that. You've Lost That Love and Feeling. It's very good, but with a jazz, totally a jazz touch to it. If I Ruled the World is great. My Love, Forgive Me is a nice ballad. Reach Out for Me, and Welcome, Welcome. This is Nancy Wilson again. It's called Today, My Way. Release date on that one, 1965. So a few years later, she recorded with, there was a sound in the mid to late 60s called the Philadelphia Sound, of course, out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And it was a team of producers that would knock out a bunch of artists. The Delphonics are one that comes to mind, and that same team produced this one. The release date on this one's 1970. It's called, of course, Now I'm a Woman. She looks a few years older here. This is 5 years later than the one I just showed there. And of course, there's a little blurb about how she got her start and led up to this record. So what do we have on here? I think there's a cover on here. Let's see. No, I'm mistaken. Oh yes, there it is. There's a cover of Bridge Over Troubled Water. That's a Paul Simon composition. She does a nice version of that. So when I say the Philadelphia Sound, and those guys, these guys are like top 40 bands again, like the Delphonics. Look them up if you don't know them. You'll get a feel that they totally define the Philadelphia Sound. And this was more of a pop vocal, not jazz vocal, more pop vocal, but highly listenable. I mean, she's just got such a dynamic range. She's just a great singer. And it's Nancy Wilson, Now I'm a Woman, 1970, the release on that. Excellent voice, really, really excellent. This was a replacement, this one right here. The Scotsman, the happy hippie himself, it's Donovan Leitch. This is live in Anaheim. It's just called Donovan Concert, but it was recorded live in Anaheim, California in the summer of love. Of course, we know the year is 1967. So I had a copy of this and it was just really banged up. I couldn't listen through. Really frustrating because I paid, I paid about $10 for it, so you get what you pay for. But again, I got this for half that price, and it's in really, really great shape. Of course, this was on Epic, and there he is on the back. I don't know, he's playing I guess that's a reed or a flute. No, it's a reed. What am I saying? And then there's a nice story he writes here in his own handwriting about this is about his first trip to California. And, he talks about, I think upon the beautiful concerts, swimming in silence of our making me and you shared. I mostly saw concerts and hotels. I did spend a pleasant time in Malibu on the beach. Well, who hasn't, right? I used to live in Huntington Beach, California, and yeah, it's very nice. So this is Donovan in concert. I'm a big Donovan fan, and this is a really excellent set. Apparently the CD has an extra 10, 12 songs. If you're a CD person, they reissued it, I think, in the 90s. But again, this is an original American pressing of this record. Starts with Isle of Ilay. There is a Mountain. That's a really great song. Young Girl Blues. Guinevere. Widow with Shawl, A Portrait. Probably my favorite Donovan song of all time. Widow with Shawl, A Portrait. Just really excellent. He's a great songwriter, a great singer. One of the best from his time. Petered off in the 70s, but that period between 1965 and 1971, a lot of great material in there, and this is no exception. It's Donovan in concert, Anaheim, California, 1967. Summer of Love. Peace out. All right. Into the 80s here for a little synth pop. I've mentioned this band before. Synth pop, new wave, pop soul. You could call them soul because Martin Fry was really, really heavily influenced by a lot of the Motown artists from the United States. These guys were, of course, from England. Martin Fry on vocals, of course, with he's got that new wave look, and then also with the suit and tie. And Mark White was the other guy here, keyboards. And Mark White on guitars, keyboards, and programming. Programming was just like they would play loops, a lot of these new wave bands in the background, pre-programmed beats and etc. But this is more of a pop soul record. This is their fourth studio release. I don't have the ones in between, but this was just a couple bucks, and I really like Martin Fry singing. I only knew one single on this, and that's When Smokey Sings. Like I said, he was a fan of the Motown artists from Detroit, and of course that's all about Smokey Robinson, When Smokey Sings. But I've listened to this through once. I would say it's above mediocre. Would I seek it out? No, but it's something I'll listen to because I like Martin Fry and having it on in the background. It's not a really engaging listen, but it's fun. It's just like I said, it's like a new wave pop soul, if you will. They just call it soul because he like that Motown vibe. But again, it's ABC with Martin Fry on lead vocals. Release date on this one, I believe, 1985, and it's called Alphabet City. There it is. Again, When Smokey Sings was the only single that charted on that because they were pretty top 40, pretty big at that point, mid 80s. So speaking of pop, this is what the best of pop folk, if you will. This is the second Bee Gees album. Release date on this one, I want to say 1967. So there's Maurice right there. There's Robin, and there's Barry. These two guys are just sidemen that played in the band at the time. Names escape me. It doesn't really matter. It's all about the trio. And there they are, as I just said. Barry, Morris, and Robin. Robin and Morris are no longer with us, but Barry's still around, and I think he performs as the Bee Gees, and he's got one of his sons plays in the band and sings with him. But anyway, yeah. So this is their second studio album. I mean, this is just ear candy. It's just really, really, really great pop music, and their harmonies are it's just unmistakable. As soon as you hear them singing, you know who it is. And they wrote great songs too. There's just no denying it. The ballad that kicks this off, give that a listen. It's just called World. It's just fantastic. And side 2 kicks off with Where I'm Living Here, the state of Massachusetts. That's another great ballad as well. Lemons Never Forget, that's a little faster tempo number. That's another great single. I mean, this whole listen is good, including the title track, Horizontal. And of course, like I said, this is the Bee Gees, Horizontal. They were on Atco. Nothing fancy on the inside. The Atco label at the time. Kind of that pink and beige, or whatever color is that, maroon? I don't know. Maybe I'm colorblind in my old age. Yeah. But I thought there was some liner notes in there, but no. Looks like I replaced that inner sleeve. They didn't have plastic at the time, sleeves, when this came out in 67. So again, this is the Bee Gees, Horizontal, 1967. Really, really great. And I've got the first one too. The name escapes me. But just really, really excellent pop music. Can't recommend that highly enough. If you like polished pop music, that's for you. Pop folk, that is. Going back a little earlier in the 60s, this is 1965. Of course, it's Astrid Gilberto. She was made famous just a couple of years prior to this, 62 or 63, when that Stan Getz and Joa Gilberto, who was her husband, he was a Brazilian jazz guitarist, did that collaboration with saxophone great Stan Getz. And on this, you have Astrid Gilberto sang on that. Of course, everybody knows the girl from Ipanema. That was, of course, very, very famous. And that was Astrid Gilberto. So I believe this is Astrid's, it was her second studio release following that debut she did with Getz Gilberto. And again, this one came out in 65. So there's some great moments on here. Love Theme from Sandpiper. Nonstop to Brazil, Funny World. I mean, if this doesn't cheer you up, there's no hope for you. I always say that when I talk about Astrid. I mean, her vocal range was minimal, but just a really pleasant tone throughout, and it's just a really relaxing vibe. And I love bossa nova, and I love Astrid Gilberto. Just really fantastic, really great. All right, getting to the end here of the pile, folks. So this is Emmylou Harris. I featured her in my Beautiful Women in Music video I made about a month ago or so. And this was her second studio second studio release rather. And the name on this one, of course, it's called Elite Hotel. Of course, she does, like I said, she was a good friend of Graham Parsons, the Flying Burrito Brothers. And there's a great cover here of Sin City. Of course, that's on Flying Burrito Brothers album. The name escapes me, but and then there's another cover here. There's a Lennon and McCartney composition, Here, There, and Everywhere. What else on here? Feeling Single, Seeing Double. Amarillo is a great song that kicks this off. That's written by Rodney Crowell and Emmylou Harris. They collaborated on that. Rodney Crowell collaborated a lot of songwriting with a few people. Have to get some of his stuff. I have a best of on CD, but I'd like to get some of his earlier material. So there's the cover right there. Isn't she a beauty? Could have been a supermodel in a second career, I swear. Just a beautiful, beautiful woman. And another track on here, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Together Again. Of course, that's a Buck Owens song. And that was a very big single for her. Of course, cracked the top 40 on the country charts at the time. She was always classified country, but I consider her more of a folk rocker. And it's Emmylou Harris, Elite Hotel. Release date on this one, 1975. Really excellent. Glad I found that. And lastly, this was probably my best find so far. The summer's almost over. This is, of course, Stan Getz and Charlie Bird. This was recorded right before the Getz Gilberto collaboration that I just mentioned, the one, of course, that had Girl from Ipanema on it. I've mentioned Charlie Byrd several times, Brazilian jazz player, or American rather, but traveled to Brazil and was heavily influenced by the bossa nova sound. And I've got a whole bunch of Charlie Byrd records. I love him. Great, just instrumentalist, no vocal. And so this is this band. It's a 6-piece band here. You can see the other personnel right here. And this is, of course, called Jazz Samba. It's Stan Getz and Charlie Byrd. And they do a version of Desafinato here that's really good. What else on here? Samba Triste. You Look So So. Forgive my terrible Spanish or accent. It's miserable. But this is such a great record. And this is a Japanese pressing, as you can see here. But I got it for a great price. And again, release date on this one is 1962. And it's Jazz Samba. If you like bossa nova, this is essential. It's Stan Getz and Charlie Byrd. I can't recommend this enough. So yeah, this video's turned into a big selling. I'm trying to sell bossa nova to you, but yeah, it's a great style of music, so it deserves to be sold and listened to. So again, Jazz Samba, that's Charlie Byrd and Stan Getz. Release date on that is 1962. So that wraps it up for today, folks. Again, it's just my Summer Finds 2022, just a summary. And there was a few others I had, but they're in the reject pile, so I'm not going to show those. So again, I don't do a lot of shopping in the summer. It's more of I'm more outside enjoying the great weather because it's a short season here in New England. I'd rather be at the beach than a record store. I know that almost sounds sacrilegious to the collectors, but it's just one of those things. It's a seasonal thing for me. And we'll head into the fall. I've got a record show I'll be going to in Burlington, Mass. So anybody who lives around the area, ping me if you can, message me. And we could always do a meetup there. It's in Burlington, Mass. At a Hilton Garden Inn. It's the same guy that runs it. I went to the show back, I want to say it was right before the Boston Marathon in April, and it was really well organized, and I found a lot of good stuff, so I'm going to go back to that show. I believe it's the 16th of October. It's a Sunday. But anyway, rambling on here. I'll sign off. Wish you guys, this is probably my last video I'll make till after Labor Day, so whatever you end up doing the last couple of weeks here of summer, I hope it's enjoyable, and keep watching my videos, and I'll see you soon.